She didn't receive a fair trial, regardless of if you think she's guilty or not. Yeah, so no fair trial, and also no evidence, which is a crucial part. No evidence that any M was even committed. It's scary. Why do you think she's innocent? Honest question. Because she is not guilty. It's just, I mean, it's pretty obvious that she's not guilty. R. Kelly was framed. Yeah, R. Kelly was framed on his most recent conviction. Yeah, that's correct. But not on his previous things that he has done in the past, which are quite heinous and distasteful. But on his most recent conviction, yeah, he was framed. Do you think she could be guilty of another lesser crime such as medical negligence? Medical negligence is not a crime unless you mean criminal negligence. I don't think that she's guilty of criminal negligence. The threshold is too high. If they changed the threshold and said just because someone's present when someone passes away that's criminal negligence, I don't think that would be very conducive to proper medical practice. But irrespective of that, she's not guilty of any crime. It's quite obvious she's not guilty of any crime. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to frame her and fabricate narratives that are ridiculous in order to get her convicted. And this just how people respond to this case. It just tells you where we're at in society, where we think we're really advanced, but we really have archaic, brains. Many of us are not very sharp. People don't understand logic. They don't understand statistics. It's like we are the same animal, the same creature from the Salem witch trials and all of this stuff. And people are so susceptible to groupthink that I have genuinely lost faith in humanity completely. When the realization of how much people are actually just influenced by herd mentality. I mean, I knew that most people were, but I didn't think it was 99% of people, but it really is. The NHS didn't investigate and prosecute. That was the police and CPS. Yeah, but if you actually knew how the case was prosecuted, you would understand that the prosecution was actually led by the consultants that made the allegations against her. So it was essentially a prosecution by the NHS, because police will always side with the NHS because they're criminals. They're a criminal organisation who collude with police and local authorities to pursue their agendas. And anyone who's really gone up against them knows that this is what they're like. But if you've never gone against them, you won't know that that's how they operate. They're like a mafia. She's 100% guilty from what I've heard working in the NHS. When someone tells me that they work in the NHS, that's never a sign to me that they know what they're talking about, unfortunately. What do I think about her diary? So her diary entries are interesting because she's put that she's not guilty on the same page that she said, I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. So is she saying that that's what someone's saying about her? And how can you have a diary confession to something that didn't happen? She never admitted to an M. If she did those crimes to your child, was she still not guilty? So this is what I mean when I say people don't understand logic. So this person, girl mum, think about the logic of this question. I'm saying she didn't do it, right? Her response is, but if she did it to your child, would she still be not guilty? So this shows that she doesn't even understand what we're talking about. Because I'm saying she didn't do it. So why would your response be, but if she did it to your child, would you say she's not guilty? That question implies that she did it. I'm saying she didn't do it. So your question is completely irrelevant. Where is your great logic and discernment? You don't understand her very, very straightforward diary. No, I do understand it. That's why I'm telling you it's not a confession. And you can't be guilty of a crime that didn't happen. I'm thinking of the logic there is still guilty, so don't try and call me dumb. There isn't CCTV, so again, you don't know what you're talking about. It's a bit suspicious that the same woman was involved in multiple babies dying, don't you think? No, I don't think that's suspicious at all, because if you work on a neonatal ward, then you're going to be and you're assigned to sick babies, then you're going to be present when those babies die. especially if the babies are dying due to a systemic issue. So that is not evidence that you've committed an M, the fact that you were present. Because you work in the place where the babies die. So, of course, nobody understands anything. All authorities are wrong. Thank God you've right. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the authorities are wrong about almost everything, yeah. Because their job is to control the way that people think about things. So, of course, they're just going to lie to you. And if you're not very intelligent like you, then you're gonna struggle. It just wasn't in our nature to do any psychologist. It's to cover up. Yeah. It's crazy to me that after all of the new information that has come out, people still can't see that she's innocent. So, like, I thought that when the media started, like, pushing the other narrative, showing all of the evidence that she's not guilty, that people would suddenly start saying, oh, she's not guilty. But it just shows the level of cognitive dissonance and ignorance. It makes me worry about my case, because I'm like, my case is even harder to believe than Lucy's, even though we've got evidence and recordings. So I guess that's how these criminals get away with framing people, because the public just would never believe what the things that they do. Good news don't stick. I think it's more than that, Katie. I think it's more than just good news not sticking. I think there is something wrong with the public. There's something wrong with the way people think. It's decades of demoralization and brainwashing, and people just can't think critically. Kobe Kabana says, I have no opinion on her guilt or innocence, but knowing what I know, balance of probability leans towards guilty. That's fine. If you believe on the balance of probabilities, it leans towards guilty. You know, that's, I don't know what, you know, what is making you think that. But that doesn't even matter, because the threshold is not balance of probability, it's beyond reasonable doubt. So if on the balance of probabilities you think someone's guilty, but you have reasonable doubt as to if they might not be guilty, then you should be acquitting them. And obviously there's reasonable doubt in the Letby case. What's your views on ICE? What's ICE? There is CCTV. Google's a thing. Do the research. No, there isn't. Immigration, customs enforcement. I mean, that's not really relevant to the discussion. Can I ask who she is and what she did? She's a neonatal nurse that's being framed by the NHS because when they have systemic issues that cause the deaths of children, they don't want to take accountability, and so they frame people and cover it up. And that's what's happened to Lucy, and it's happened to many people. It's just that most people don't hear about it. I know many people that it's happened to personally, and it's happened to me as well. So I have no doubt about what's happened because I've already experienced it myself. I'm not taking it emotionally at all. I'm obviously being logical. Like you said with the diary thing, she may have written she did do it and then make her believe. What happened to you? I was framed by the NHS and then they killed my child. Do you have any thoughts on her being neurodivergent? I'm autistic and I'm convinced she is. I know, so I actually have spoken to the person who helped to free Lucia de Burgh. He's actually quite prominent in the press. I've spoken to him regarding this case. He is a mathematics professor, and he's been involved in numerous cases like this. And again, he told me he's freed 2 other nurses that had been convicted just how Lucy had been convicted. And he was autistic. And he said that he believes that Letby was autistic as well. And what you find is that people that do things by the book, or that are highly logical and take things, say things as they are, they will struggle in the NHS, because in the NHS there's a lot of bullying and hysteria, and so people that are highly logical, they're very easy to frame, because when they say things, they're very matter of fact and they say what they mean and mean what they say. But people who are subversive and coercive and gossip and cover up, they are very difficult to frame, because they always cover their backs and they do things in a way that gives them plausible deniability. But people that are honest, they won't seek plausible deniability. For example, when my daughter was on the ward, they make a mistake with the machine, and I'll say to them, excuse me, I've just told the management that you guys have made a mistake and it's harmed my baby. But some parents on the ward who might have better social skills than me, they will just be like, oh, everything okay? Yeah, okay. But then me, I'll go to the senior management and say, hi guys, there's been a mistake made with my baby. This nurse did it. Do you understand? So you make yourself a target because you're being honest and open and logical. But people who are covert in their actions, they're more difficult to frame. People that are more, that socialize in a different way to how many neurodivergent people socialize, they're harder to frame. And this has been happening to me for my whole life. I always get framed with things because of how I reason. I'm logical, so I always say what I mean and mean what I say. You're obviously very biased. That's not to say child protection is... No, you're just ignorant. It's not that I'm biased. You're just ignorant and you don't want to open your mind to the fact that you're wrong. So don't call me biased because you don't know what you're talking about and I do. For one reason, why are they reading her diary in the first place? She's writing her thoughts from her. She was told to write those thoughts by a psychiatrist. Jenny said, I'm the same, multiple false allegations, working in care because I stand up for what's right. Yeah. The problem with the NHS is it's unaccountable. There's always someone at the lower end to blame. Yeah. Your experiences don't apply to Lucy's case. Yes, they do. I've been through what Lucy's been through, and I've been through what the parents on the Lucy Letby case have been through. And I've got a direct connection to the Letby case because the same expert whose narrative was used to convict her is the same expert that's narrative was used to deem my daughter's death a natural causes death. It's the same guy. And I also have spoken to the guy who is the #1 campaigner in freeing Lucy Letby, and he's freed 2 other neonatal nurses who were falsely convicted. So I think I'm probably one of the best people on the planet to speak about this matter. Not only that, I've researched this case intently. I have a very analytical mind, and I can clearly see that there's been statistical errors in her case, heuristic errors. Beans, I know you're jealous of me because I'm more intelligent than you, but you don't have to derail the live. Who do you think injected the babies with incident air? Nobody injected anybody with incidental air. That didn't happen. Right, let's block the derailers because I'm just tired of this kind of thing going on. Oh yeah, Beans, you can jog on too. Let's get you off here. Blocking people who don't have the same narrative as you. No, they're trying to attack my experience when the live is not about my experience. The live is about the veracity of the allegations against Lucy Letby, and so it's just a complete red herring that derails the live when people try to make false claims about me and who I am and what my experience is and whether I'm qualified. I mean, it doesn't add anything to the discussion. What do you think really happened? I think that the consultants that she had an issue with on the ward decided to frame her, and because they're very powerful, they got away with framing her. And I think now that the S has hit the fan, they are doing everything that they can to prevent themselves from going to prison, which is what happens when you frame people and then things spiral out of control. Consultants have God complexes. Yeah, they're some of the worst, most unaccountable people in our society are NHS consultants, and they're actually probably one of the main reasons why the NHS is failing, because there's no accountability. People defer to them. People treat them like gods. They don't really add as much value to the NHS as people think. They don't, the NHS is in a crisis, but then when people try and blame the people who are responsible for the crisis, they want to deflect onto people that are like in the public or people that criticize them. And it's like, who is to blame? Because surely if I'm running a business and the business sucks, people are going to be like, you suck. You need to, you know what I'm saying? You need to go. But in the NHS, the consultants and the senior management, they are the ones ruining the NHS. And then they're somehow blaming the fact that they don't get enough money Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they suck. That's why the NHS sucks. Do you believe that the babies were deliberately mic'd? I don't believe anybody deliberately did anything. I think that they are just negligent because they're not as intelligent as people think. These people don't get the job because they're intelligent. They get the job because they go to medical school and they follow steps and they learn how to keep their mouth shut and they learn how to rub the right shoulders. That's how they get positions. They learn how to look the other way when negligence happens, and that's how they rise up the ranks. Like, it's funny when people talk about like billionaires and stuff, they're like, oh, there are no good billionaires because billionaires have to what's it called? You know, billionaires have to mess people over in order to get where they are. And then it's like, nobody ever wants to apply that same logic to the people that are really powerful in the NHS. It's like, they get where they are because they don't raise concerns. They don't expose corruption. That's how they rise up the ranks. Cillian said, who should do the jobs if not the people that spend years going to medical school? I think the whole system needs reform. I think medical technology is more important than the institution of medical, of the what should I call it? The creed of medicine and how it's been practiced for decades, in fact centuries. I think it's based on an archaic system that needs to be totally reformed, because it's based on a system created by the Jesuit priests of Rome, and it's modeled on the hierarchy that you see in the church, where you have initiates who are better than everyone and have this internal information that nobody else can access, and then the profane who are just, you know, the everyday patients who are just not the experts. And that system is no longer congruent with our reality, because in our reality everyone can access abundant information. So we need to rely more on technology than on doctors, because the technology gives us direct access to the information that we need. But what we have instead is we have these people, they're in these high power positions, and they are able to pretend that they're providing more value than they actually are, and nobody is able to hold them accountable. So in reality, their power needs to be decreased, and we need to give more power to the technological side of things. All the medical notes should be digitized. Like, they should be wearing body cameras. They shouldn't even have to write medical notes down, because an AI can do that. So I feel like we're entering an era where this system is from a bygone era. Why do they not think about it? Police have body-worn cameras. Why do medical staff not have body-worn cameras? Does anybody ever think about that? It's because they don't want you to see what actually happens on the neonatal wards and on the hospital wards. Because if you saw what actually happens, you would realize that 90% of their job is just covering stuff up and fabricating diagnoses against people. Like, that's literally what they do. Like, it's just their bread and butter. Do you think all medical staff should be replaced by AI? No, I don't. I just think that a lot of the medical documentation should be digitized and should be done through camera audio recordings. There's a way to make that system more efficient. We can't keep pretending that there's no way to make it more efficient. Due to patient confidentiality, yeah, but they still have cameras, so they still are able to see. The thing is, we can reform the system. I get that right now, like the way it is and the legal precedent makes it harder. But if we actually campaign and put effort in and think around the problems, we can reform the system. So you say, okay, well, what about the personal data issues and stuff like that? Well, they still have cameras on wards. Now, if you did a referendum of the public and said, what matters more to you, your personal privacy or having everything that happens on a ward documented? I would argue that most people would say that they would rather have it documented. So we should implement that. We should implement cameras, and some wards do have cameras, so it's not impossible. There should be cameras, and that's how things should get documented on the ward. Lucy would not be in prison right now if there were cameras on the ward. I wouldn't have got framed if there were cameras on the ward. So that's a big deal. And a lot of people who pass away on wards, they pass away because of medical negligence. And they don't want the public to know that. It's like the best kept secret. Celestial Cat says, I'm a support worker, you can put a camera on me any day. Exactly. And people that think like that, these are the good people in the system, the people that have nothing to hide. But the people that are against it, it's because they know what's going on. I know what's going on. Many of you guys don't know what's going on, unfortunately. But what is really going on is that people are being mass emmed, or let's just say mass killed, at an unprecedented rate, and it's being covered up. And it's one of the biggest crises in the history of the UK, what's happening in the NHS. Miss JW says, I prioritise my rights to privacy, but the NHS are criminals. Yes, they are basically an unaccountable communist mafia. And that's just me calling a spade a spade. And they adopt those kind of ideologies in order to inculcate their the members of their little cult with this mindset that they can do no wrong and they must protect the system at all costs. How is it communist? Well, the rhetoric around it is based on communist ideology. There's a document called Towards a Million Change Agents, I think. You should look that document up. It's about how they wanted to change the NHS and use social movements. The social movement is communist rhetoric, communist ideology, to make people have a different perception of the NHS. You should look that up. Towards a Million Change Agents. And it is. And that they operate because they have 100% public funding. They're not accountable, and they unalive people, and they get away with it. And they function how a communist system functions. Mo says, my dad forgot his diabetic meds, had a hypo, gave him meds, next minute dead to random. NHS has always worked to make down minority population, mainly, but then minorities still trust them. They do it to everybody. I blame the media. They played a huge role in propagating bias. Yeah, we now living in think about this, guys. We're now living in an era in the UK where you can blatantly see that the public was prejudiced in the Letby case, and nobody even cares about that. That's the most glaringly obvious part of it, is that the jury was prejudiced by the media because of how they covered the case. Number one. Number two, the way that the case was brought by the prosecution, the case should have got thrown out straight away because the evidence was cherry picked. The evidence was presented in a way that was deliberately misleading. And I don't believe that it wasn't deliberately misleading, because unless these doctors are not as clever as they seem, how can they not know what cherry picking is? Of course they should know what cherry picking is, unless doctors are not really as intelligent as people think, which they're not, unfortunately. But Chloe says, can she appeal? So her appeal was denied. That's another thing that's extremely suspicious. Why was her appeal denied? That's weird. She definitely had grounds to appeal. The case was so dubious and such a weak, the strength of the conviction is so weak that she definitely had grounds to appeal. Why was she not allowed to appeal? Well, the reason she wasn't allowed to appeal is because it's a cover-up. So that's why they didn't want her to appeal. And then it's now going to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. So if this case is reviewed and she is found to be still guilty, we have entered in the UK a post-truth era in the legal system. And the common law system is probably the best thing that the UK has left. The system that exists in the courts is the best thing left in the UK. And I predict, right now, I'm predicting, because this gets recorded as well, I predict that within 30 years in the UK, we will be living under full-blown communism. Because all of the principles and precepts that made the UK great and made the system, the common law government system, or the common law legal system work, have all been rescinded. Everything good about it is gone. So the health system doesn't work anymore. Politics, we all know politics is a scam. The police are clearly corrupt. They're leftist ideologues. NHS also leftist ideologues. So what's left in terms of systems and institutions that can be trusted in the UK if the legal system goes? Koba Gawana says 30 years is generous. UK will be communist before Salman leaves. I'd say 30 years. We have another jealous person calling me an Oreo. We get it. You're not intelligent, you know. Nadia, we get it. You're not intelligent. You can't keep up with the conversation. It's okay. It's okay. Just, you can make it about race because you're not intelligent enough to keep up. It's okay. It's okay. We're not mad at it. We're not mad at it. We know that that's what you guys resort to because when you can't keep up with stuff. We know. It just shows how intelligent you are. Opinions on reform. I don't think reform is going to be able to solve the issues in the UK, unfortunately. I think they have some good ideas. I like the idea about the Bill of Rights, the new UK Bill of Rights. I don't like the fact that they want to bring back stop and search because I don't believe in infringement on civil liberties that are unwarranted, and I believe that people should have the right to bear arms. So I don't agree with stop and search being brought back by reform. What else is reform stipulating? The immigration issue, I think any party could realistically solve that. And I don't think any party will actually solve it. They will probably reduce net migration a bit more, but there will still be a lot of net migration, as you see now, where they're all trying to claim, oh yeah, look, see, we're responsible for the reduction in net migration, and they're like, it's still 500,000 people that came into the country. It's not exactly like gonna, like, the situation's still getting worse in terms of the strain on the services. I wouldn't even be surprised if the reduction in the NHS waiting list is just fabricated, or they're just playing around with the data, because I don't see how they could have reduced the NHS waiting list with an extra 500k people in the country in 1 year. How? You're conflating legal and illegal migration. No, I'm not. You just clearly didn't understand what I said. Do you have evidence of this? I mean, for no hate, but she found guilty. Yeah, it's just a wrongful conviction. Whatever this government say, you can bet the opposite is true. Lucy's innocent. Funnily enough, I actually don't think Labour is doing as bad as people make out. Just being honest, I'm not a Labour supporter. I'm not left wing, but I just don't see what in particular Labour is doing that people think is the cause of the problems in the UK. Definitely the way that they covered the riots, I thought was appalling, and I thought Starmer should have actually resigned based on how he prejudiced the investigation into some of the people that were convicted and how the police called them criminals before they were convicted. I thought that was abhorrent. I didn't like how he characterized the people's concerns with respect to what happened in Southport and started calling them all far-right thugs and stuff like that. I thought he could have handled it better. But I think in terms of policy, there's nothing Labour has done really that the majority of the UK wouldn't want. What have they done? They're nationalising the rail. If you did a poll right now, should the rail be nationalised? Most people will say yes. What are they doing? They're cutting the two-child benefit cap. If you did a poll, should the two-child benefit cap be removed? Everyone will say yes. What is Labour doing that people don't agree with? If Labour are continuing the trend of allowing people to get arrested for speech offences, most people in the UK believe people should be arrested for speech offences. So Labour is doing what the people of the UK want. The problems in the UK are not because of Labour. These have been problems for decades. It's only now with TikTok and the internet that people starting to see, oh, people get arrested for speech offences. It's been happening. Oh, let's see if we can get a guest up, actually. We got, let's see what Copacabana wants to say, because he's been waiting a while. Thanks for the gifts, by the way, bro.